This video will be the tutorial for the SPSS Survival Manual homework for Chapter 11, Correlation. In this homework, you'll be practicing running a simple bivariate correlation, generating a correlation matrix with several variables, generating a condensed matrix, and then also generating the output so that you can compare patterns of correlations between groups. So we'll start with number one. I've got the survey.save file already open and running in SPSS. And the first question asks you to generate the correlation between total mastery score and total life satisfaction score, and then to describe the results. So to do this, we go up to Analyze, Correlate, and select Bivariate. And we need to scroll down and find our scale scores. So we're going to select total mastery as our first variable, total life satisfaction as our second variable. Then you open the options menu. You want to make sure that exclude cases pairwise is selected. You have a choice whether or not to generate the means and standard deviations. I tend to, just in case I want at some point to report that in my write-up. You click OK. You click Continue and then OK. Now, as it's described in your chapter, there are several steps for you to take in interpreting the output. Notice that what you're given is a kind of a two-sided matrix with these ones in the center. Essentially, what the ones represent is the variable correlated with itself. Obviously, that'll be a perfect correlation. So you're given on a correlation table like this, you're given the Pearson correlation coefficient. So in this case, it's between total mastery and total life satisfaction. The correlation coefficient, or R, is presented here as 0.44, and you get 2 asterisks. That at the bottom of the table, correlation, that means the correlation is significant at the 0.01 level. The actual significance level, or the actual p-value for this test run with 2 tails, is 0.000. And then they give you the n for the test. Now notice that this table is reflexive. You've got the same correlation reported between total life satisfaction and mastery as you do between mastery and total life satisfaction. So you're only really reporting one correlation here. What you see is that there's a moderate positive correlation between total mastery scores and total life satisfaction scores. What this suggests is that as scores on mastery, so as your perception that you have mastery over your environment goes up, so does your overall life satisfaction. Now in number 2, what you're doing is generating what's called a full correlation matrix. So you're looking at intercorrelations among variables. We use a very similar procedure to what we've just done. So you're still opening the bivariate box, and in this case, you're going to hit the reset button, so we start over. I'm asking you to use age, perceived stress, positive affect, negative affect, and life satisfaction. So we start with age, put that over. Then we need to scroll down to our total scale scores. And I've asked you to include perceived stress, positive affect, negative affect, and total life satisfaction. Again, we can go to the options box, and you want to make sure that exclude cases pairwise is checked. You can get the means and standard deviations if you want. I'm going to skip that step this time. And then click OK. Now what I've asked you to do is to indicate which combinations of variables have significant correlations. In a table like this, and again, you've got, imagine that you folded this page across the ones and folded that triangle down, the numbers would be identical. So you only really need to pay attention to either the top triangle or the bottom triangle. it really doesn't matter which one you choose because the numbers are the same. So the asterisks, again, mean that you've got a significant correlation. The sign, if there's a negative sign, that means that there's a negative correlation. So the correlation between age and perceived stress, for example, is significant. It's a negative correlation. It's relatively modest in size. So what that suggests is as people age, their level of total perceived stress tends to go down significantly. Age is also significantly there's a significant negative correlation between age and total negative affect. So as people age, their negative affect goes down. When we go over here to perceived stress, there's a negative correlation between perceived stress and positive affect that's moderate in size. So the more stress you're under, the less positive your mood. There's a significant positive relationship between perceived stress and negative affect, meaning if you're stressed, you're in a bad mood. I'm sure that shocks everyone. And then a significant negative correlation between life satisfaction and perceived stress. Positive affect is negatively correlated with negative affect. So if you're happy, that's going to be negatively correlated with being sad. Positive affect and life satisfaction are positively correlated, and that's significant. And then finally, total negative affect is negatively correlated, significant, negatively correlated with total life satisfaction. So that takes care of number 2. For number 3, it's a little more complicated to wrap your head around the instructions. And these instructions involve doing something with the code that you're doing to run the test. So for part A of number 3, what we want to do is generate what's called a condensed correlation matrix, where we're looking at how age is correlated with 3 other variables. So we go to Analyze, Correlate, and Bivariate again, and we're going to, this time, we can start fresh. We're going to bring age over, and then the other 3 variables are positive affect, negative affect, and perceived stress. Then what we do is we click on Paste, and what this does is it opens the actual code that you're asking SPSS to run. And what you have to do is we want to look at how age is related to these other 3 variables. So that's what the instructions in part A of number 3 ask you to do, is look at the correlations between age and positive affect, negative affect, and perceived stress. So you put your cursor in between age and total positive stress, and then you type the word with. And then you highlight the whole thing, and I find Pallant's instructions here, they make sense, but I had to read them really slow. So, just kind of watch along here. You highlight it, including the period, and she says, make sure you include the full stop. She means the period. And then you click on this green arrow, and it will run the command. So what this gives you on the output is age goes over here, and then all you're shown are the correlations, not in a matrix format, but instead in a condensed format, the correlations between age and the 3 variables that we've indicated. And what you see here is that age is not related to positive affect, but there is a negative correlation between age and both total negative affect and total perceived stress. Now for part B, we're going to run that same analysis the connection between age and the three variables, positive affect, negative affect, and perceived stress. But this time we want to be able to look at the correlations separately for males and females. So here we're going to use, we're going to split the file. And you're given instructions on page 145 for how to do this. So we go to Data and Split File, and we want to compare groups, and this time we're going to compare them based on sex. That variable was already over there because I was playing with it. I got a demo here for you how to do it. So you click Compare Groups, you grab sex, and you put it over. Now what it's going to do is sort the cases by grouping variables, and once you turn this on, what you're asking SPSS to do is any command I tell you to do, I want separate results by the grouping variable. So you click OK on that, and now it's split the file. Then we go back to Analyze. Oops, about that. Analyze, Correlate, Bivariate, and it should still have everything defined for us. Now you can go back to paste. You will have to unhide it. So now we've got our split, and we still want to tell it to go to do that for us, and we want to include everything. I have to go find my data file here. So what it's done this time is the file is split, and it's going to run that correlational analysis separately for males and for females. So what do you see here? For males, age is only related to total perceived stress, and you have a significant negative correlation between age and total perceived stress. For females, there's only a relationship between age and total negative affect, and it's a significant negative correlation. So for women in the sample, as they got older, they experienced less negative affect, but the correlation with perceived stress and positive affect were non-significant. For males, you have non-significant correlations for positive affect and total negative affect, but you do have a significant negative correlation. So as men age, their total perceived stress tends to go down. And that completes your tutorial for Chapter 11.